Hey everybody, welcome back to another video. In this one, I'm going to walk you through how we turned this old master bath into my new guest bathroom. You're probably wondering why we're turning a master bath into a new guest bathroom. Well, after we bought this house, we figured it was more functional for this room to be a guest bedroom and for this to be the new guest bathroom. And so that's what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to show you a series of time lapses from start to finish, how I phased it out to help me throughout the construction process, and some tips and tricks I learned along the way. So let's get to that. Let's go. So to start off, here's footage of the existing conditions. It has a walk-in shower, a toilet, and a single vanity, but not functional for 2 people. So to turn this into our new guest bathroom and get the most bang for our buck, we figured adding a bathtub would be more beneficial for resale value. So planning that into the design was critical. We had to determine the new layout, figure out where the toilet was going to go, and figure out what the vanity was going to go. And so we came up with this design right here. And so the bathroom increases in size by 2 feet, and the door gets relocated to the public side of the living space. And so I started off by building the new wall. This had to be done first because I was getting ready to demo a load-bearing wall. And to be honest, I'm actually glad I did this because I actually caught that some of the existing joists overhead that were directly above the bathroom were not even long enough, and 2, some of them weren't even screwed in. So I increased them in size by adding 2x6s and spacing them 16 inches on center to the new load-bearing point. After that was completed, I started demoing the old wall. You can see me working my way up here. I did encounter some electrical wiring that was running through this wall, but that's okay. We're going to get that rerouted anyways. And also, these windows that you see here in conflict with the studs are actually getting removed in a future phase. And after the wall was completely demoed, I started demoing the old shower. I forgot to mention that I actually turned off the water lines before I actually did any demo work. So make sure you do this if you're planning your own renovation and you're going to be doing any demo work yourself. And after all the demo was complete, I went back underneath the crawl space and I cut and capped all the existing water lines that were previously serving this restroom. After I got that out of the way, I started framing the new walls to prep for the new bathtub location. Before I do any of that, I have to make sure I install my new post to support a future LVL beam that I'll be installing in the next phase. I decided to go with this layout to maximize the kitchen space. And on the other side of this wall, there'll be a cabinet that gets installed, and so that also had a factor in determining this bathroom layout. And after the walls were completely framed, I started prepping for the bathtub installation. I prepped for the overflow drain and I installed a mud bed for the actual bathtub itself. And after this was complete, I figured this was the best time to go ahead and cut the new door opening. To do this, I ended up using my DeWalt oscillating tool, which was very useful for those tight edges I could not get to. And if you have a piece of plastic laying around, this is where it can become useful just to prevent that dust from traveling throughout your house. Okay, so after the majority of the walls were framed, it was time to move on to the electrical and plumbing. I started off by rerouting the electrical to the power outlet. After that was complete, I started working on the light fixtures over the vanity. I had to make sure that the light switch was powering not only these overhead vanity lights, but also the light in the restroom itself. Be sure to turn off all your breakers before you do any work. And if you don't feel comfortable doing this type of work, be sure to hire a professional. And after the electrical was complete, I started rerouting the sanitary and water piping. I ended up talking to a plumbing friend of mine, and he helped me come up with a design that was more beneficial with the existing conditions. I ended up spending around $800 on the sanitary, venting, and the domestic water materials, which was pretty reasonable for the amount of work that I was doing. Okay, so now that that's done, I started prepping for tile installation. The first step was to add a flashing membrane over the tub flange. I then added a layer of plastic over the studs just to protect it from any potential moisture that would be penetrating through the wonderboard itself. And at the bottom of the actual flange, there'll be weep holes just to allow some of that water that's potentially trapped back there to just weep down into the tub and then into the drain. And after this was done, I actually started taping all the joints and floating as much as possible. This is just because this is my least favorite thing to do, so I figured I'd get ahead of it and work on it, for a couple of hours after work each day. And after that was complete, I actually started waterproofing the bottom joints of the bathtub flange and also the shower niche with a Schluter system. For the Kerdi band at the base, I ended up using a Kerdi sealant at the tub flange and then thin set mortar on the cement board itself. For the rest of the joints, I actually used a reinforced fiber mesh tape, and then I applied a thin set of mortar over that. I let that dry for a couple of hours, and then I topped it off with a Mapei waterproofing and crack isolation membrane. Okay, now we're ready for tile. To get started, I used an 1/8 inch trowel to help with the thin set mortar application. Using this size of trowel will definitely benefit your penny tile installation and prevent that mortar from popping out from the back of the penny tile, which can be very time consuming to remove if you are not cleaning it as you're installing it. And for the adjacent walls, we actually went with a 4x16 inch tile and ran it vertically. I decided to go with a Schluter edge trim all the way around the edges, including on the top, just to give it a nice finished look. And trust me, it is definitely worth it if you are installing penny tile. I finished it off by working on the shower niche. The back wall was the same penny tile installed on the accent wall, and then filled in with the same 4x16 tile on the sides and the top and bottom. After that was complete, I started working on the floor tile. To get started, I actually used a laser level to transfer in my starting point line. This is to ensure I was going for the same size around the edges and not have to worry about any smaller cuts. I had to measure each one size by size and cut it to make sure there was an 1/8 inch gap between the tub and the tile. And after the tile installation was complete, I moved on to the grouting phase. I used 2 different colors, one for the penny tile and one for the adjacent walls. Be sure to read the manufacturer's instructions on how to properly mix your grouting. Adding too much water can harden the grout a lot quicker and can lead to a bad application if not mixed correctly. I let that dry overnight, and then I came back the next day to grout all the edges with a grout caulk. I then moved on to the last couple of phases. And although I did have a paint and primer, I decided to prime the walls first before applying the paint and primer. And this was because I actually taped and floated the entire walls, and I wanted to make sure there was a good seal between the walls and the new paint. We decided to go with an eggshell finish on the paint and primer. This was also mixed with a moisture resistant additive that also helps with any potential moisture buildup in this bathroom. After the paint was completed, I started installing the door. And I went with a 2-panel square 24 by 80 inch door, and I topped it off with a Craftsman style finish. Okay, so that's it. Let's recap. I took an old master bath and I turned it into this new guest bath, and here's the finished product. And so there you have it. This is what it took for me to actually turn this old master bath into this new guest bath. I did come across some challenges in this project, but overall there were valuable lessons learned, and definitely going to take those with me on this next bathroom that I work on for my master suite. So stay tuned for that video. So there it is, guys. Appreciate you guys watching this one. We'll catch you guys on the next one.